Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Krys Johnson, and today I'll be talking to you about how to balance media and media requests with other priorities. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I joined the faculty as an assistant professor of epidemiology and biostatistics at Temple in fall 2019, just prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And prior to pursuing my PhD, I was actually an emerging infectious disease fellow with the Florida Department of Health in 2019 during the height of the Zika epidemic that was occurring at the time. So I've got some experience in dealing with emerging infectious disease and the unknowns that come with it. So that said, I'm originally from rural Georgia, and in the 16 months since I've completed my doctoral degree, much of what I've learned about postdoctoral life has been through the lens of addressing a pandemic while living in a major metropolitan area despite being from extreme southeast Georgia. So throughout 2020, I've had to learn how to balance demands, including teaching, mentoring, research, and actually planning a wedding during this historic pandemic. So as such, I have also been part of 80 or more media mentions beginning in January 2020 to include the New York Times, Live Science, the Philly Inquirer, and several other publications. This presentation is entitled, For the Record, How to Effectively Communicate with the Media and to Balance Media Requests with Other Priorities. So we're going to go through what you do whenever a reporter or journalist emails you, and then go through some of my best practices and tips that I kind of wish I'd known in January, but have learned along the way. And then we'll come to my conclusion. So first things first, a reporter emailed you, now what do you do? Well, did they actually list a specific topic, and can you speak on that topic? What is their deadline? Is it in 2 hours or is it in 2 days? And based on that deadline, do you actually have time in your schedule or based on your other time commitments and priorities to do that? Have they told you what type of piece they plan to doing, and are you comfortable with that? Some people are comfortable exclusively with print pieces. Some people are content to do print, audio, or video pieces. I find that I like my radio voice better than I like my video voice, so that's kind of why I'm radioing this right now. But I'm also happy to do print pieces for any journalists that I've worked with frequently. So if any of the above are missing, you can feel free to respond to the reporter and ask for whatever is missing for you to help make this decision. And if all of those above answers are yes, are you comfortable with the mode of the piece that they're doing? Take the interview. Now, here's where I get into my helpful tips that are some of them lessons learned the hard way. So first of all, keep it simple and keep it short. We know a lot. We spend a lot of time learning about our craft and refining our craft. We really need to break it down to the elementary level. Make sure that whatever we tell the journalist is something that can be easily digested by the public as well. Media outlets typically like short, sweet snippets, so things that can be very easily inserted into a quote or a label bar or just a very brief audio or video clip. But in that, whenever you're making sure that things are simple and short, make sure that your comments can't be taken out of context. So even people like Dr. Fauci, who's been running the COVID response for the US, or advising on it at least, has had some of his comments taken out of context. So it might happen. Just be very conscientious of the way that you speak. Next, you can say something is off the record to a journalist, and that journalist, if they are reputable, won't include it in their piece. So if you are doing an audio or video piece, you may wait until it is no longer recorded and then speak with the journalist off the record. That said, if you don't know a journalist, you shouldn't say anything off the record, or alternatively, it's called on background. So if you don't know this journalist and you don't know how they practice, you may want to step back from saying anything that could be off the record. So that said, save the numbers of journalists that you trust. and also those that you don't. You can also let people in your college or your department know who might be coordinating interviews for you, who you prefer not to take interviews with, and you'll just be inexplicably busy anytime that person contacts them. So you should also feel free to pass the mic, and that just means that you need to give other people a voice as well. If you've had multiple interviews or there are other people in your department who could better speak to a topic, then you should pass that on. And whether that's asking that person individually if they would like to be part of an interview, or sending their contact information to the journalist so that they can contact them individually. Also, if you're too busy, you should always feel free to send contact information to another person who can answer their questions as fully. And all of this is about amplifying other people's voices and experiences while making sure that the quality of the information that is getting out to the public doesn't suffer. You should also prioritize yourself. So oftentimes I find myself saying, I would love to take this interview, but I have X, Y, and Z that are due by 5 p.m. So that said, work-life balance is really important. At the height of the first wave in April, I was getting multiple requests per day, and that just was not sustainable. So like COVID-19, many newsworthy subjects are things that are not in a split second in time. There are things that occur over months at a time, and we can, if we don't take care of ourselves in the work-life balance, we can actually burn out, and we can use self-care to prevent that burnout, because burnout can actually reduce the quality of the information that is getting disseminated and reduce our ability to respond and process in the moment to questions that are brought up by journalists. So that said, if you turn down an interview, you can always suggest an alternative. Some of those alternatives to voice comments include asking for an emailed list of questions. There are some days that I just cannot find it in me to take another phone call or another Zoom interview, but I can find it in me to answer an emailed list of questions or to answer via text message to those whose phone numbers I have saved in my cell phone. You can also refer the journalist to a colleague, like we said, pass the mic, or you can give an intentionally belated timeline. And I've done this a couple of times. Oh, I don't have time until next Monday, and it's the Thursday before. That said, they said okay, they would push it until Monday, and so I had to make sure that I did in fact make time for that person. So you can give a timeline that you think is extended, but you also have to be okay with the time that you proposed because you put it forward. You can also just say no. Just say that you don't have time, you're too busy, you're on your honeymoon, etc. That said, regardless, never say no comment. You can say, I don't have expertise on that subject. I don't think I'm the best person to talk to. I haven't read that article. But don't say no comment. Just refer people either back to your media contact or to other people in your department, or simply say that that's out of your area of expertise. So all of that to say, honestly, just have fun with the journalists. Most journalists are really excited that an expert has taken time to speak with them. In that, be yourself. If you are an avid sports fan, you can bring that to the table. That's really worked out well for me in the COVID-19 pandemic and talking about all of the sports bubbles. And I've gotten to do some really fun interviews based off of that. But be honest about your limits, whether that is limits of your expertise or the limits on your time. You shouldn't be adding exorbitant amounts of stress to yourself to make sure that you're giving comments. If that is happening, then you need to reach out to your media contact or other colleagues or your department chair to make sure that the burden of getting the information out there isn't just on your shoulders. And just remember that this is about disseminating accurate information. So it's not about making sure that every person in the department gets a turn. It's about making sure that every person who can speak to the subject has an opportunity to speak to it. Finally, my last recommendation is to read all of your print pieces. And if you have a correction, email the writer. Watch your video pieces and decide whether you like the way that they spun your story. If not, you might have decided a new journalist's name to save under Do Not Answer. And listen to your audio pieces to see what you can do better in reducing the clutter in your speech, ums, ahs, wells. I still struggle with that, obviously. But it's really interesting to learn more about yourself and about the way that media and journalism works from behind the scenes. So if you have questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to your colleague or a department chair. So please feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. Like I said, I learned most of this stuff the hard way, and I would much rather you learn from my best practices. Thank you, and have a great day. Stay safe.